Hello, I'm Sally Ducharme, welcoming you to another look at a celebrity chart of someone who's been prominent in the news this past week. The chart that interested me the most was the chart of Meghan Markle. Her husband's, Prince Harry's memoir has been published out a couple of weeks, phenomenally successful. And I was wondering how the book is going to impact her. If we look at her chart, we see that she is a super Leo, Sun in his own sign, Mercury conjunct, so pulling that energy into the force field of the sun, that her thoughts and words very much harness to what that sun wants to do. And the whole conjunction is empowered by being on that north node. Very strong life force. I would imagine if you met her, you would just kind of feel it kind of coming out at you as like a beam of light. And also her chart ruler, she's Cancer rising, is in the sign of Libra. Libra is a sign that works and plays well with Leo, both fire and air, kind of bubbling along together. This Libra moon loves a peaceful life, loves beauty, loves to be in harmony with everything. And also this moon was harnessed to that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the sky at the time of her birth. So a very strong sense of justice, wanting things to be harmonious and beautiful for everyone. So you can see kind of her past efforts as a humanitarian have been connected to that energy with this light that she wants to bring out in the world to help bring about a more fair and just and beautiful world. So she's created kind of a Meghan land here, where everything is beautiful, everything is hopeful, everything is moving forward to this better place. But of course, there's always a few planets that don't want to play along. And kind of working against Meghan land, we see the planet Mars in her first house. She's got Mars very loud in the first house. It's in its fall. And so Mars in Cancer doesn't function as well as Mars and some other signs. We tend to weaponize whatever we have with Mars, where Mars is. And so with Mars in Cancer, we tend to weaponize our emotions. I want everyone to be happy. I mean, only the best, and everyone's being so mean to me. I have these feelings and no one is seeing them, that kind of you can tell I'm very good at this because I have Mars in Cancer as well. And so that Mars in Cancer, very defensive, using emotions to defend herself. And we find because Mars is placed exactly in square to her midheaven and IC, that she could, in these efforts to defend herself, she could run afoul of the powers that be. Certainly we saw that happening with her time when she lived in England with the royal family, and then rattles her internal security, that her home life. She essentially, fled her home after the problems that she and Harry had with the palace. So you can see that Mars not quite functioning that well with the kind of Meghan land planets. However, one planet that does help that Mars is Venus in a nice sextile to Mars. Venus in the third house, very articulate, very good at communicating, can get that message out into the world. And so Venus in this case working effectively with Mars. However, that Venus is a bit problematic in her chart. We see that Venus is in Virgo, first off. So Virgo is where it's in detriment and fall. Venus that loves to connect, loves to be harmonious. Virgo likes to nitpick and take apart things. And so that sort of critical element, which you certainly see in her taste. She has faultless taste in clothes. Always looks absolutely beautiful. So it works well that way, but not always so good at building relationships of the people, especially third house people, those in her immediate environment. And so this Venus ends up working in aversion to the Meghan land planets, the Leo and the Libra, wanting to share light, wanting to bring peace and joy and happiness. that kind of nitpicking Virgo is always just like a stumbling block to what she's trying to do. And so you think about, she's historically had some problems with, I think, a half sister who's said very mean things about her in the press. Certainly she's had some problems with a sister-in-law. If you look at derived houses, her husband is a seventh, his brother is a third from the seventh, which is the ninth, and her husband's brother's wife would be the seventh from the ninth or the third. So you can certainly see Kate right there in the third house with that Venus in Virgo. Very beautiful, very correct, and very critical. And so that Venus is not particularly a helpful planet, and especially when you think Venus rules all those Libra planets. So she's trying to kind of bring this beautiful energy out into the world, and then there's something is always just kind of off and holding her back a bit, which is shown by that Venus placement. But also, if we think about Prince Harry's book, his book was, he's the seventh house. His creative project would be the fifth from the seventh, which is the 11th house in Meghan's chart. And so what rules the 11th house in Meghan's chart but that Venus? So Venus here in her third house in Virgo suggests she probably brought an editorial eye to the manuscript before it was published, but also tells us that even though the book has been phenomenally successful, it's not going to quite bring her the image that she was hoping for, because that Venus does not work particularly well with those Meghan land planets. And if we also look at the planet that is most important in her chart this year by the transiting planet is Jupiter. She's 41. She's in a sixth house perfection year. So we kind of look at what is Jupiter doing in our chart right now. And so Jupiter is in Aries. And so interesting, as the Netflix special came out, as the book was published, Jupiter going into our 10th house is always going to be kind of good for bringing our energy out into the public and getting ourselves noticed. And my gosh, has she ever been noticed by this? And we know that Jupiter here has also been in a nice trine to the Meghan land Leo planets, but also kind of creating an opposition, but yet very positive, because the Leo, it's setting off the sextile. So that she's been noticed, she's been celebrated in this book. I think about a third of the book is a valentine to her, is very much in evidence with that Jupiter in the 10th house, setting off her Leo and Libra planets. But notice that it's not doing much to that Virgo Venus. However, one thing we might want to note is at the end of February, early March, that Jupiter is going to be setting off the square to her Mars. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a time when a lot of the negative impact of the book starts affecting her public image a bit. That might be a time when it's discussed whether they'll be attending King Charles' coronation in May. So I would look for some sort of a kerfuffle around her public image occurring when Jupiter crosses that midheaven in another month, 6 weeks or so. And then also, if we think about in August, she enters a new perfection year, and that will be a 7th house perfection year ruled by Saturn. And we know that Saturn is going into Pisces in March. And so by the time it becomes her perfected planet in August, it will be well into Pisces. And so what is it doing there? But it is creating that quincunx to both her Leo and Libra planets, that 150-degree angle, where things are just a little bit off. Things are not working, and so adjustments are required. So once again, we have her, trying to bring her energy, her light out into the world And something up here is just disrupting it and causing her to have to make adjustments. And so when you think about Saturn in Pisces, her perfected planet, it will be a perfected planet for 2 years. And during that whole time, Saturn will be in her ninth house. And remember, among other things, that ninth house is her husband's brother. So I would imagine there's going to be a kind of publicity war between Meghan and Harry and William and Kate and the royal family. And so it shows that this is going to be kind of an ongoing strain and struggle over the next couple of years. And then the opposition of that Saturn in 2024 to that Venus, which among other things rules Prince Harry's memoir, shows that this is going to be a real sticking point or a difficulty. However, never fail. Meghan, I think, is going to be just fine. She's got Saturn will also be making a trine to that very defensive, very loud Mars. So I think she's going to, in the end, be able to take care of herself very well in the publicity war. But we've looked at the 7 traditional planets now. We've taken the Hellenistic challenge. So let's look to see if the outer planets add anything else to the story. So we'll add in Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto and see if it makes a difference in the chart. We see, of course, that Uranus is in her 5th house of good fortune. And so she certainly is someone who you would think has been fortunate in her life. You know, she was able to have an acting career, which, you know, many people strive for and never achieve. She married, you know, apparently someone that she loves very much and is very happy with. And of course, who's very well known and helped elevate her profile. So we see that Uranus is in nice aspect to her ascendant and descendant. And so that she just kind of had, you know, she had friends introduce them, and that this relationship took off, and she found a love match, and then she was able to have children. All those good things suggested, especially if you think about Uranus is loud in her chart because it has station. That S means it's station. So it's just getting ready to move direction, which gives it more importance and significance in the chart. So a fortunate lady in many aspects. Neptune, a little more problematic in her chart. It doesn't really connect much with anything. The one planet that it does is this Chiron in her 11th. So I would think that possibly her efforts to be of service towards friends could sometimes be difficult, that Chiron in the 11th could be pain through, you know, just kind of her the public responses to her. We think of the 11th house as being an audience. So that could be suggested as well. But one thing it kind of tells me is that it's maybe someone who's really made efforts to be of service at Neptune in the 6th house and finding it very difficult to actually bring that about in any sort of a concrete way. So that would be my guess on Neptune. Pluto, however, if we look at that, we see it's right down here with the Libra planets. You know, it's moved. The other planets are all kind of applying to Pluto in Libra. And it's right here with her IC and in her 4th house. Pluto in the 4th house could suggest a lot of deep-seated difficult things in the family history that are kind of beneath the surface. Sudden endings also in family history. I think we know that her parents divorced. She has kind of a problematic relationship with her father, you know, growing up in a divided between her parents' home. So kind of a divided childhood. So that kind of intensifying the difficulty. It might, because it's in a wide square to Saturn, to Mars, suggest that heightens her insecurity that she had kind of the home, the basis that she knew taken away when she was young and had to rebuild a new home somewhere else. That's kind of suggested there. Also, you think something has to end for something to begin with Pluto in the fourth house. And we know that at that dramatic conjunction of Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn in 2020, I'm sorry, that's a messy Pluto. I'll do it the easy way. Was at 22 degrees of Capricorn. And so it was setting off a square to that fourth house Pluto. So something had to end, their life with the royal family. For a while, they didn't have a home. They were kind of scrambling to find something. And then they had to rebuild a new home in a new country. And so that's kind of suggested too by that Pluto in the fourth house. One thing that interests me too is how Pluto is moving into Aquarius around the same time all of this is happening. And so that Pluto moving into her eighth house will be with her south node. And so that's going to be ongoing for the next few years. By 2024, it's in there for good. And so I'm thinking that one thing that's kind of suggested by an eighth house is our partner's needs. Now, you think about joint resources, but you think seventh house is our partner, second house from the seventh is what do they need? And because it's her south node there, I think as Pluto is passing back and forth over that point, it's going to come home to her more and more that a big part of her life now is going to be meeting the needs of her partner, and that this will be very draining on her. Going back to that Leo sun that likes to shine as an individual, I think that's going to be tested and challenged over the next few years, especially when you consider that she's has a family also to consider. And she's got a husband who, when you think about what he has been through, he's lost his home, his country, his family. I imagine a number of friends from his past, all kind of left behind to start a new life in California, where she has been at home in California before and has friends and has connections. And so I would think that this is going to be something that she's going to have to kind of face over the next few years as Pluto is bringing endings and beginnings in this area of the partner's needs and kind of bringing attention away from her desire to express as an individual. So I can see that being ongoing in her life for the next few years, especially. So in any case, I certainly wish, as always, Meghan and Harry well as they start their or continue their adventure in California and in publishing, and it'll be interesting to see where life takes them next. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll plan on seeing you next Monday. Bye.